Are you looking for practical ways to apply AI to your small business instead of all these cutesy make me into an action figure or cheating on tests, things like that? Well, that's what I'm going to discuss today. I've been scratching and clawing my way down the AI rabbit hole because I run a business. I wanted to see, can AI actually help me accomplish a bigger task? If you've watched my channel, you know that I am an IT field tech and I employ IT field techs. My entire channel is really geared towards the IT field tech industry. Throughout my 25 years in business, I have used different kinds of databases. I started out in the early years with something called ACT, and it had some customization to it, a little bit of dragging and creating fields and things like that. And then I switched to Microsoft Access. And then I realized that I wanted to have the ability to get to my database through the internet. So I learned how to incorporate Microsoft Access with a MySQL database so I could access it anywhere from a computer. It wasn't the smoothest operation in the world. Then I actually dug into paying people to develop a web-based application database. And those things worked really well, but I didn't know enough myself to know how to program the code for the website, to make changes. And I knew the foundational pieces of a database, and I learned a lot about that from Microsoft Access and from my PHP admin. But to actually put all the pieces together and make a web-based database and a website that would talk to that database, I was a tech, but I wasn't a software guy. And many times in this industry, the guys that can do hardware don't really know how to do software, and the guys that do software don't generally know how to do hardware. A few years ago, I had a snowstorm that socked me in for a few days. I took that time to actually dive into learning PHP. I'm not a young guy, but I am a technically minded person, so I was able to actually learn enough about PHP and get on groups on the web and ask questions and get help with code and of course watch YouTube videos. And over those days of being stuck in the snow at my house, I built out a fundamental website database that I used for one of my businesses. Since then, I've actually paid other people to develop my database that helps me to manage my company. I use it to manage my employees, to manage my timesheets and payroll, to actually manage my vehicles and my mileage, so that I've got that for IRS reporting purposes. And I use it to manage my tickets, my customers and their contact numbers and their addresses, the whole thing. I paid somebody to develop that. It was affordable because I used people off of Fiverr. I was actually looking at one of the guys that I worked with on Fiverr and having him quote building me another database for Field Tech Academy and for some of the other work that I'm doing and some things that I've got that I want to do in the future. And I knew that this was going to cost a few $1,000s, but I felt like the payoff would be worth it. So I started prepping the information that I would need to give him to build the database. And honestly, that phase was going to take a lot of work. I mean, I was going to have to basically lay the database out in some form that I could give to him so that he would know what I wanted. And I knew this was going to take months of back and forth. He makes a form, and I'm like, well, okay, I don't want the field here. I want this in this drop down and all that. Then I started noticing these little videos on YouTube Shorts and TikTok, these people using AI to create a game in 18 seconds or whatever without coding. I thought, let's see what AI can do. Let's see if it can help me to at least build the foundation of the database so that I wouldn't have to pay somebody else to start the process. I can maybe pay them for the more advanced items that I wouldn't be able to figure out. And I started looking at ChatGPT and X's AI, Grok. The first thing that I did was I took a form that I had used on my previous database and copied the code into ChatGPT and into Grok and said, hey, I need to modify the server location and the addresses that this form is pointing to because it was on another server for a different website. And it literally spit back to me code that I could use for my new website, for my new web database. That was about 3 weeks and 200 hours ago of work that I have now spent on my new database, which is now functional, far from finished, but I've actually been able to implement it. My most recent database that I was using was Zoho Creator. It was nice because I could literally go in and it walked you through creating forms. It had a sidebar where you could say, okay, I want a plain text field. I want a combo box. I want a drop-down list. And then these are the items I want in the drop-down list. And you could rearrange the fields. And all of this helped me to manage tickets because I work with about 50 different direct clients and platforms, like Field Nation and Work Market, if you've heard of them. And we do quite a lot of tickets a week. And of course, with Field Nation and Work Market, you could theoretically just manage your tickets on those platforms. But since I have all these other direct clients, I wanted one central database where I could track all the tickets that come in, make sure that everything's being billed, track all my client contact information and details about insurance and onboarding and all these things that I need to know about these clients and that I wanted to share with my Field Tech Academy customers through the direct client package. I needed a way to manage all of that, so that's what I use my database for. But Zoho Creator, it's about $75 a month to have the tier that I needed, to have the users that I needed, and the amount of records that I needed. Well, $75 a month isn't enough to break the bank, but I wanted my own database because I actually want to build out other things. So I knew if I could learn how to do this to replace my current Zoho Creator database, then I knew I would be able to build something bigger for bigger goals. Well, that was 3 weeks ago and probably 200 hours ago of work. What I have found, number one, is that ChatGPT isn't really that great at that level of coding. It gives you good information at some point, but time and time again, I found that using Grok was absolutely game-changing. The level of development that I've been able to do with Grok is absolutely insane. Of course, what I'm doing is probably a little more advanced than what a lot of casual entry-level people would do, but Grok can handle that entry-level stuff. If you just need a basic form and you need it to do basic things, then it's a slam dunk that Grok can do it. The things that I've done, for example, I've got one form that has 1,800 lines of code in it because of all the things that I want it to do, all the validation. I want it to send an email to me, like the check-in form. I've created the ability for my forms to send me emails, to actually talk with Google and add new tickets to calendars and specific calendars based on values that are in the database. So if I assign it to Bob Smith, my tech, then when I create the ticket, I hit a button and it actually adds it to Bob Smith's calendar. If it's a different tech, it adds it to their calendar. Then on the back end, I actually have it integrated with Google Drive to where the guys fill out a closeout form. They fill out all the information I need to know so I can bill the ticket, and then it's integrated with Google Drive. They literally upload the files right there. The form goes into Drive and creates the folder, names the folder, uploads the files, then sends me an email to let me know that they've closed out. I've already built in my timesheet and payroll information, so the guys have a clock in and clock out form that tracks their payroll so they can actually clock in like a time clock. We're tracking tickets that aren't billed, future tickets, and actually every trip log so that I can bill every trip that we make on a ticket that might have multiple trips. Just the amount of stuff that I've done is absolutely mind-blowing and game-changing, and I've done it for free. And I don't even know how to tell you how insane this is without obviously going into massive detail about the coding. Maybe this will inspire you and give you the confidence to know how to use Grok or your favorite AI program to create a website database that can get you away from using Excel spreadsheets or Microsoft Access or paying for someone else's monthly service for a database that doesn't do what you really want it to do. So let me show you a couple examples of some of the forms that I've made. I've set up user accounts that I can control, user levels so that I can have my employees get into the database and they can see certain things and they can't see certain things. Grok also goes through your code as you're building it and makes sure that it's secure as it can be. It offers suggestions on things like prepared statements. I'm not a programmer, so I'm relying on the expertise of Grok to ensure that it is somewhat safe. Now, this is an internal database. This isn't publicly available, but I also don't want to leave the door wide open for somebody to come in and jack with my database or jack with my data in general. I've set up a dashboard as my first page that comes up after login. This shows me how many open tickets that I have. It shows me how many trip logs I have that are complete and need to be billed. Shows me any timesheets that are open, which means that I have employees logged in and on the clock. And this shows me who is on the clock. At the bottom of the dashboard, it shows me the actual trip logs that are ready to be billed. I've built in the functionality so I can actually just click on one of my trip logs. For example, this is a Field Nation ticket. I click on that and it takes me to the view/edit page for that trip log. I'm able to see what date that trip log was scheduled for, what time it was scheduled for, whether it was a set time frame or a variable time frame. Then when the tech has completed the call, then they've selected a visit date. They put in the time on site, and there's a pop-up for that. It's a time picker. Their time off-site, it calculates the total hours that they were on site. And again, a lot of this stuff is done in Field Nation, but I had to come up with a system that was standardized to cover my platforms like Field Nation and my non-platform clients, my direct clients. Some of my clients only use email and they don't give you access to any kind of database. I use my own database to track all of my tickets from all of my clients so that I know what was done on the site. I know whether I billed it or not, whether the job is done, and then I can run my own reports. And you've got basic form structure like trip status, tech on site, and I've built all of this into the database. Repair results, was it successful, not successful, deliverable status. So, if I have a tech that hasn't turned in their deliverables yet, then I can mark that it's incomplete and it will go into an escalated list. I can select which of my technicians are assigned to that job. Then I get their repair notes, which for like Field Nation, they just copy and paste. But for my clients that are email based, we use these notes to actually create the billing. I have them enter in any supplies and items that they use on the job so that we know to bill for cable and wall jacks and all that. Who did they close out with the client? And then of course, if I get travel pay, I mark that here, and then there's a time log where it timestamps every time this ticket is modified. Now let's go look at my tickets page. Some of this I've built because of my past experience with databases. And there's times that it's difficult to mentally think through the roadmap. How do I have to build this so that I can track everything properly? You have to have different tables. You have to have a table for your tickets. You have to have a table for your trip logs. You have to have a table for your clients. You have to have a table for contacts and addresses and your technicians, which are, vendors. You have to have a table for your vehicles and a table for your vehicle mileage and on and on and on. You have to build all these different pieces if you're going to do a big time relational database. And you may not need something quite this advanced, but at least if you've seen this, it gives you an idea of what you can do, and you can just build something a lot more basic to accomplish your goals with in the back of your mind knowing there's a lot more that I can do here. There's just so much on every page. If this is something that you want to learn more about, then I can do a deeper dive into it and even go into more specifics about the code. I just wanted to kind of share my excitement with coming up with a way to do this myself through AI's assistance. But I didn't have to pay a developer to do this and wait for months of back and forth of all the changes and modifications and changes again and testing and all that. I've been able to compress that into 100 to 200 hours of my own time, but it's my baby. I've built it. I chose what fields I wanted in what spots, and I'm far from being complete with it. I really wanted to focus on being functional first, and then as I used it, I knew that I would be like, okay, well, so when I'm going through billing, I actually want this field in this spot. And ooh, it would be nice to be able to click this button and it go do this. And that's the kind of stuff that with Grok, I'm literally able to take the existing code that I've built, copy it into Grok, and say, hey, I would like on this form to be able to click a button and it go to the client's website for this ticket. I'm just insanely excited at all the little things that I can do, and I wanted to share it with you to give you an idea of what is possible. What is something like this, something practical and actionable that you can do besides making funny pictures and memes that might actually help you in your business. Whatever your business is, you can do stuff like this. So if you like this content and you want to actually see more of the actual interfacing with Grok and some of the code generation and how I actually copy it and make some of these items and some of my process, then let me know in the comments and I can make more videos about this. And if you would rather me just stick to IT field tech industry tips and tricks, then that's fine too. I don't care. I was just super excited about this and wanted to share it with you. So hopefully you're out in the field making money. I'll see you in the next video.